The investigation into Russian election meddling is heating up, and we have insight from former FBI Special Agent Dave Couvertier. And the war over health care is coming to a head.
I can't imagine the anger we're going to experience back home if we don't do our jobs.
We'll investigate the proposed cuts to Medicaid and work through specific ideas both sides may agree on. We'll go one-on-one with Senator Bill Nelson and Congressman Charlie Crist. This is Money, Power, and Politics.
And also tonight, we're investigating the Pasco County sinkholes, show how these sinkholes form and how we may be able to predict them. That's coming up in the second half of our show. But we will start with the fight over health care and some points to consider for both sides. The man you're about to meet discovered the problem with Obamacare and the problem with slashing Medicaid to replace it. That's tonight's We the People. It's a good insurance plan, except for when you get really sick.
Until you get sick, and they take it from you. Yes, pretty much. Sounds crazy, right?
When it comes to loopholes and contradictions and twists, our government can be relentless.
I'm stuck in a catch-22.
And Ray Martineau ought to know.
It turned me into an emotional basket case. It's basically what it did.
He had a job.
I've been working since I was a kid. I love to work.
And he bought health insurance off the government exchange. But then doctors discovered cancer in his bowels.
Bowel movements are like, you almost black out from the pain.
He had 2 advanced tumors and needed surgery and chemo.
I've blacked out in the hallway before, and my mom's had to pick me up off the floor in the hallway.
He got too sick to work, so his mom postponed retirement to pay his premiums for him.
She's the world. That's my mom. I can't eat, and when I'm throwing up, I was there when I blacked out in the hallway.
But with no proof of work, they would not take his mom's money, which brings us to the twist. Under the law, you have to work to get subsidized health insurance. But if you get too sick to work, they take it away.
If you can't earn the income for us to give you this subsidy, we cannot give you insurance.
He could not keep his health without a job, and he could not keep a job without his health.
If the premiums are being paid, why are you going to take my health care?
Well, the short answer is Congress figured people with no income should not get subsidized insurance. They should get Medicaid or state-run health care for the poor. But just being poor does not qualify you for Medicaid in Florida. You have to be poor plus disabled or under 18 or have children, etc. So a lot of folks like Ray slip through the cracks.
I think about what my mom would go through if something happened to me. I don't think she could handle it.
They canceled his policy and cut off his treatments last year as the cancer spread. And Ray struggled with how to tell his mom goodbye.
I can't think about kids dealing with what I'm going through. And it's stressing me out big time. I wish it would just all go away.
But then he discovered another twist that saved his life.
And look at me, look at the results.
He wasted away so much, the government declared him disabled, which qualified him for Medicaid to get him back on his feet.
What we should do is maybe go relax by the pool.
Yeah, we could do that.
4 surgeries later, he's cancer-free and eager to get back to work.
I can pay it back in, you know, I'd be productive and pay taxes again.
And as he recovered, he met Shirley, and they just got married.
I look in his eyes, and I look in his eyes, and I see what he's been through, and I see the happiness coming through.
Which brings us to a third twist. As Ray credits Medicaid for saving his life, politicians in Washington now plan to slash it by hundreds of millions of dollars.
So if it wasn't for the Medicaid, I'd be done.
With so much focus on the costs, which are substantial, Ray just wants them to consider how it can also pay off.
If more people had it, more people could get back to work and start paying taxes and paying into society and building their lives back. And not only that, they'd all be happier and healthier.
And consider how it paid off for him.
I'm the most blessed person in the world. I love you.
I love you too, baby.
Well, Florida Senior Senator Bill Nelson, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Craig.
Have you seen any studies that get into the amount of money Medicaid can save by saving lives of people who then would go on to pay much more in taxes and social insurance over time?
Well, it's pretty well established with the Congressional Budget Office that the cuts under the Republican Senate plan that Mitch McConnell is trying to cobble up the votes, that it would eviscerate Medicaid. It'd be $800 billion whacked out of Medicaid over a decade, and in effect what that means is there would be cuts to children's programs, to the poor, to seniors. 65% of seniors in nursing homes are on Medicaid. And so we're talking about cuts across the board.
Does anybody know on Capitol Hill how much money, therefore, Medicaid saves by getting people well so that they can put more money into the system?
Well, I am sure we can ask the CBO on that. The whole theory, and you have hit a very important point, the whole theory of the Affordable Care Act is if you can either get people well through preventive medicine so they don't have to incur medical expenses, or when they have an emergency and they go to a hospital, that is not uncompensated care that all the rest of us pay for in our insurance premiums. If you can do that, then it can save a lot of money in health care. And that's actually what has kept the rise in insurance premiums lower than it would be otherwise. But we're just at the beginning of this, and the system is working out some of the kinks. And here we go, people trying to destroy the whole system by repealing.
Republicans say they're reeling in the expansion. Since Florida did not expand Medicaid to begin with under the Affordable Care Act, what impact would these cuts have, if any, on Medicaid recipients in Florida?
Well, $800 billion over 10 years, a whack out of Medicaid is going to hurt an awful lot of people. And we're talking about a program that is in effect for 70 million people in this country. And $800 billion is almost $1 trillion. You're talking about a substantial cut.
If Republicans and Democrats were to come together, both sides agree there need to be changes. If you negotiated together, give me your prediction of what the two sides could change specifically.
For the insurance company that has the huge loss, it's kind of like what we did for hurricanes here in Florida. If the big one comes, the insurance companies, they can't stand the losses that they would incur. But that's why we set up the Florida Hurricane Catastrophe Fund. It's got a reserve of billions of dollars that will be a reinsurance to keep the insurance companies from going under. If you did that same concept, a reinsurance fund for catastrophic illnesses, I've already costed it out. It would reduce premiums in Florida 13%. Now, that's a substantial reform. Here's another reform. The price of medicine that the government pays compared to Medicaid, what it pays for Medicare, we pay premium price for Medicare, even though the same person at age 64 was getting it at discount through Medicaid. Why should the federal government, we the taxpayers, pay that additional bump to premium price? That would save us, the taxpayers, $140 billion over 10 years. There are two substantial reforms that you could do right there.
Senator Nelson, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Now, as Congress works through health care, you have something else going on. Hillsborough County is caught up in a controversy over a Confederate monument, and the commission could vote to move it off of public land outside the county courthouse on Wednesday, and Hillsborough Commissioner Les Miller is leading the charge. Well, Commissioner Miller, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Let's start with the other side's point of view. Do you understand what their point of view is?
I understand the point of view of it being historic. We cannot erase history. Everyone understands that. Whether it's the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the World War I or II, we cannot erase history. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that monument was erected to honor the Confederacy that fought to maintain slavery. And that's a divisive monument.
To those who support and honor these Confederate memorials, they would say this is about honoring Americans, American veterans.
I can understand that, and I'm a veteran. But you're also talking about those veterans of the Confederacy that seceded from the United States and was in a Confederacy that was not a recognized nation. They pulled away from the United States. By law, they committed treason.
But Lincoln did say Confederate veterans would be honored as Americans and American veterans.
Lincoln said that. Is that written anywhere that we have to accept that? I don't think so. But okay, they're veterans. But they're veterans that turned their backs on the United States and started their own Confederacy. They're not their own country because they weren't recognized.
Give me your best prediction of how you think this will play out on Wednesday.
I have no idea.
If no commissioner switches a vote and Commissioner Crist is not there for that meeting, as he said he will not be, you get a 3-3 tie, which would mean what?
It's defeated.
And it stays.
And it stays.
Commissioner Miller, thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome.
Now, coming up, we'll explain a plan to restore some civility in politics with Congressman Charlie Crist, plus some perspective on the Russia investigation from an FBI insider.
Pardon? That you just be quiet.
Well,
you
why?
be quiet.
You don't own me.
American politics turned into a vicious, insult-driven tit-for-tat years ago.
Submit to me.
Taliban Dan Webster, hands off our bodies.
And now both sides liken the other to enemies out to destroy our way of life.
Now the unhinged left is endorsing and applauding shooting Republicans.
And it's escalating to the point of a politician body slamming a reporter for asking a question about health care.
This is assault by purposely or knowingly causing bodily injury to another.
And then winning a seat in Congress. And so we're asking politicians from both parties what went wrong and what can they do about it now to restore some civility. And this week is Congressman Charlie Crist's turn to weigh in tonight's Spotlight.
Eyewitness first.
Well, Congressman Crist, you're wearing your golden rule. What is the golden rule?
I am. Well, the golden rule is do unto others as you would have done unto you. And I think that's an important message, especially for Washington today, where Americans see so much discord. What we need to do is treat each other with respect, mutual respect.
What's driving it? Why are we seeing that kind of discord? We've always seen discord, but to this level, the tone, the harshness, what's causing it?
Well, I think the campaign last year had a lot to do with it. It was a rough campaign, the presidential, I mean. And, once you get started on that kind of rhetoric and discourse, it's hard to ratchet back. And I think it's going to take individuals to do that. And that's why I'm sponsoring, with a Republican from Louisiana, a measure to have a national day of civility to be July 12th. And it really comes from, it's biblical, it comes from the book of Matthew 7:12, which talks about doing unto others and respecting the golden rule.
What can we do the other 364 days a year to restore some sense of civility into the political discourse?
I think exactly that same thing every single day. And that's why I paid for and distributed 535 of these yellow wristbands to members of the House and the Senate in Washington as a small reminder. I mean, it's a little thing, I get that, and I understand it. But the longest journey begins with one step. And if we're going to change the discourse, then I think it's important we do it. Our freshman class, Craig, came up with a commitment to civility. Almost everybody signed it, of the 55 of us, just to be good to each other, to be decent to one another, to be respectful to each other. We're not going to agree on everything. Everybody understands that. But it doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable as we do it.
So we're meeting here today at a company that made a significant investment in solar energy. Tell me what more you will do as a member of Congress to sponsor legislation to continue to spur investment in renewable energy.
Well, very simply, to continue to show up when people are doing things like this and highlight, the goodness that's happening with solar energy right here in our community, right here in Tampa Bay and Pinellas County. But in addition to that, from a Washington perspective, there are tax incentives that are provided in the budget. One of them is supposed to lapse later this year. So what I want to do with many of my colleagues is fight to continue that tax incentive so that businesses like this advantage from it.
Congressman Crist, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Craig. Great to be with you always. Appreciate it.
We have an in-depth look at what caused the partisan divide and how we can find common ground on our YouTube channel. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe at the top of the page. We also have a look back at how things change, which brings us to tonight's perspective from Evan Axelbank.
It seems bipartisanship is just a dream in the age of Trump. Republican House members passed an Obamacare repeal without a single Democrat. And Republican senators had to change the rules just to put Neil Gorsuch on the high court, because only 3 Democrats would join them.
Do what Congress refuses to do. And
without the opposition, Barack Obama failed to tighten gun laws or reform immigration.
By the end of this year, we will have...
While George W. Bush failed on immigration and Social Security. But bipartisanship has happened. Here are 6 examples from the last 25 years.
Who believes in the promise of America.
In 1994, Bill Clinton signed a crime bill with the help of 46 Republicans who broke with their speaker to go along with 188 Democrats. In 1996, 25 Democratic senators joined the Republicans to reform welfare.
Not one single child in America is left behind.
In 2001, No Child Left Behind, much hated now, was passed 87-10 in the Senate.
The yeas are 59.
In 2002, Republicans passed the McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform package with the help of 11 Democratic senators. Also in 2002, the non-binding Iraq War resolution saw 82 House Democrats and 29 Senate Democrats join with the Republicans and the president in the push for war. In 2009, a year before Obamacare passed without any Republican help, President Obama did get a taste of bipartisanship. 3 Republican senators agreed to the stimulus after the president agreed to lower the amount of money spent. So what do we learn from all of that? 1, bipartisanship has a better chance earlier in a president's term. And 2, in many cases, one side looks back in disappointment. Democrats generally regret the crime and welfare bills, while Republicans came to abhor No Child Left Behind, especially in the age of Trump. Parts of McCain-Feingold were rendered useless after the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. The Iraq War and the stimulus, while their president stuck behind them, it's hard to find members of Congress who would make either their central campaign theme. So bipartisanship happens, but be careful what you wish for. For Money, Power, and Politics, I'm Evan Axelbank.
Coming up, why our area is Sinkhole Alley and how they could be predicted. This sinkhole swallowed a house in Pasco County and drove evacuations and raised questions about how and where they form and what state leaders can do about it, which brings us to some answers now from Florida State University.
Dr. Ming Ye is a sinkhole expert.
This can happen anywhere.
He's a geologist at Florida State University who studies sinkholes around the world. They can happen anywhere, from a sidewalk in China where this young woman was later rescued, to a Corvette museum in Kentucky. But Florida has more sinkholes than anywhere else in the nation. And Dr. Ye is about to show us why Florida's Sinkhole Alley cuts right through Tampa Bay.
This represents what we would see were we to slice into Dover, Plant City.
That's right.
This experiment could be a wake-up call for lawmakers and homeowners across the state. The black represents limestone, pocked by fissures and underwater caves. It's our underground aquifer, topped by layers of clay and sand. Now, watch what happens when he pulls out water from the bottom, simulating sudden heavy pumping.
Oh, there it goes.
So you lose support of water to the rock or the sand.
It creates a void, and if there's heavy crop watering or heavy rain coming in from above, it will seep down, pulling clay into the gaps. We're about to speed up the video. Notice water saturate the top layer of sand, then watch the collapse.
Oh.
But remember, clay is cohesive. It tends to clump together. So we often get something like this. We get a hole in the middle, still covered by sand at the top. That's a cover collapse sinkhole that can gradually damage homes or devour them. Dr. Ye says his work could pave the way for a better monitoring system to track sinkholes and the clay layers where they form. But that is not on state lawmakers' radar. And they're not trying to rein in development in sinkhole-prone areas. In fact, state leaders dismantled growth management to throttle construction and drive up tax collections.
Coming up, President Trump, the FBI, and Russia. Here's former FBI agent Dave Couvertier on where James Comey went wrong.
He spoke in behalf of the Department of Justice, Main Justice, in saying that no reasonable attorney or prosecutor would take on this case and try to charge it. Even if that's true, that's not our position. Once he did that, we lost, meaning the FBI lost political neutrality.
Much more from Couvertier on the Bureau and leaks in the next 2 weeks. That's our show. We'll see you next week.